Hello and welcome in everybody to our final day of week 5 of the VCS English. I'm Rebel Fox here alongside Yolway early on in the morning for me. I think a little bit later in the day for Yolway over there. As we've got I don't know how it is that we continue to have just like we got more clarity this week, I think, more than anything else, which was very, very nice. We got a couple games that I don't think are crazy important for the standings, or at least not as important in theory for the standings. We did have some really weird stuff happen. So, Wait, did you know that Gam Esports already locked playoffs this week?
Yep. I believe they even locked before the last series, didn't they?
They might have, yeah. I think that was more a result of other teams not being able to catch them. But yeah, their wins definitely got them into the right place.
And looking at the standings right now, I think de facto, at least, Cerberus can actually lock as well. Because it might not be mathematically locked already, but 8 wins is almost always enough to lock players. I think that we haven't had a single split where 8 wasn't enough. And yeah, Cerberus is playing against MBE today. So, you know, it's rather likely to happen.
Yeah, we're not saying that MBE is bad. We are, however, saying that MBE has not won a game yet. So take that for what you will. Is we've gotten into first series of the day, Boxy versus the side of Cerberus. Wales versus Gam's a little more interesting. It comes a little bit down the road, which we'll talk about ramifications of that when we get there. Because right now we've got two teams sitting at 5 and 4, and we've got Saigon sitting at 4 and 5, which is really, really intriguing because they've been on the up and up, looking a bit better as the game has kind of gone on. First, we'll take a look at Cerberus versus Boxy Sports, because Cerberus, like you said, right on the verge of being able to lock playoffs, even if it's not mathematically like you had attested to. It is right on the precipice of being the case. As Boxy Sports has not won a game, we're not expecting them to accomplish all that much here and today. Last time we saw these two play, we saw Ego play, so Cerberus is in for a world of excitement. Might get some more of that entertaining early game play that Cerberus was able to mount with their player in.
Yeah, I almost feel a little bad for Drugthar, because Drugthar has to block through all the really hard series, has to play against Garm, has to play against Saigon Buffalo. It's really contentious, it's really scary, and then Ego gets to chill against Moxie Esports. It almost feels a bit bad for him. But yeah, on the other hand, of course, I'm always excited to see more Ego. I'm still a little bit curious as to why we don't see more Ego. But maybe they're still trying to incorporate him more into scrims. I have no idea how the scrims are going. Maybe they do like 1 day a week on Ego or whatever. So yeah, waiting to see what happens over there.
Yeah, and a more, I think, probably pertinent kind of aspect to this is just that like Cerberus probably going to win the series, probably going to win this in a 2-0. Like, let's be direct about that. Ego might step in. Maybe we get some Huber for some additional spice, but I mean, obviously, Roundup E's been playing for like the last 2 splits and not anything else. For Box, what does Box do to turn their split around? Because they're the worst team right now. I don't think they're the worst team we've ever seen, despite being 0-18. Like for an 0-18 team, I feel like they've given us a lot more than we've seen from other teams in the past. So, like, how does Box Esports actually win a game, win a series here? Because we just haven't seen enough for them to do it. I don't know that they're going to do it against Cerberus. What do you want to see improved from this team?
So my strategy, I think, is still the same as last week. When I was solo casting, I kind of mused about what MBE could do to maybe steal a game here or there. What is the best strategy to go for? And what it comes down to me is actually what they did in draft number 1 last week. This exact spot, Sunday morning, where they decided to go Slow's Jinx. And Slow's actually played rather well on the Jinx, was able to stand back, carry some of the team fights, and I felt like, okay, you are not good enough to play any sort of objective setup on the same level of VCS teams. We have seen enough tape to say that with confidence. They've not been able to play mid and late games even remotely close to the other teams. Even when they were ahead, they always fumbled and threw away their lead. So I thought, okay, how can we make sure that a team that is much worse when it comes to understanding of the game, but not that much worse than the other teams in terms of mechanics. I mean, they're still worse, but they're still pro players, right? They're still competent, high-level players with good mechanics. So how can we make that team win a game? And the best I could come up with is a draft the best, like the stupidest composition you can ever find in team fights. Play Cyan, Jinx, Wukong, Aurelian Soul, something like that, and just pray for late game. Pray you get there against one of the slower teams, maybe Cerberus, and you win 1 or 2 team fights. Late game Jinx carries you You get a pentakill, you win the game for no reason. I think that's actually the best strategy.
I thought Slow's played really good on the Jinx. Jinx is super powerful, and we've seen it pop up a couple of times now. And I think there's a lot of teams that it could work against. I do have my qualms about it being against Artemis, because now you got the only person who will play a dive ADC like Samira or even like Nyla or something like that, which I've been seeing more of, and I want to see more of in general. So maybe we do get that. So I think that's right. And I think Slows showed off enough on Jinx that I'm like, okay, I do want to see them run it back and see what else they've got in the tank. Because then you're playing Jinx with they play Nocturne with it. And I was like, okay, why are we playing Nocturne with Jinx here? Those are two polarizing champions. You've got one that wants the hard dive, and the other one kind of wants to play front to back with rockets and such. But they almost made it work. It was a lot closer than we've seen in a lot of circumstances. So maybe they can cook something in the grand scheme. I want to take us back also to Box Esports' kind of rookie vote, because at one point I have thought that these are the only players that were going to have a chance at the rookie vote. I now know that like Team Flash has a bunch of options. A couple other players from other teams have options too. But if you're giving any sort of MVP voting to somebody on Box, has your opinion changed since the last time I asked this question?
It's a little more muddy now. I thought it was very clear that the first half belonged to Tom Rio. He, for me, was the only player that actually looked good on this team. But unfortunately, the last two series have kind of swayed my opinion a bit. I think he's been struggling more. I mean, I do want to cut him some slack, because playing with 3 losing lanes is really challenging as a jungler. And even though he was able to kind of stamp his authority on the games early on, it does become a little depressing to always lose after a good early game. So I do feel for him. I feel like his performance has been a little bit worse. Zodiac is not a rookie. I think his play so far has been fine, but he's not a rookie, so not really eligible. I'm very critical of Slow, so I don't think it's going to be Slow. So for me, I guess by process of elimination, it has to be Nugu, who has not looked great, but I feel like he's looked alright. And considering that VCS has a very weak mid lane pool, he's the closest to the average level of mid laners, I guess.
See, what's crazy is I don't even know that Nugu is actually a rookie, because Nugu was no-go when he was on Flash. So I don't know if he played enough games on Flash back in the day. Yeah.
It is actually.
Yeah, it was wild. Which was crazy. And again, I think he played 14 games or something like that as we're going to step into draft. So you're picking out all the people with experience. That's the problems I'm fishing here. Because it's like, oh, Tom Riel's played before, Zodiac's played before, Yogo's played before. You didn't say Slows and Sunmirth, 2 actual full rookies for the roster, which makes sense, I think, if you're considering this in the grand scheme. As, okay, we get Huber. We don't get Ego, but we do get Huber. So Cerberus throwing a little bit of a bone over to our favorite backup support, probably the best backup support in the entire league. I really do think if Huber actually wanted to make a career, then he could just go to a different roster. Poor dude has been sitting behind Ron OP for literally years, but he's good enough to be anywhere else.
But Rebel, what's your position in League? What do you play usually?
What do I play usually? We usually support more than anything else.
Okay. So you don't understand how it is as an ADC main to have this support you find synergy with, and I think for Huber it's kind of the other side. So actually you do understand how it is as a support player, especially as an Enchanter support player, when you've played solo queue and have all these random ADCs, and then you finally have a duo queue partner and he's so good you don't ever want to let go of him. And I think that's kind of what's happened here. Huber has played with Artemis before, and now he just can't play with any other ADC anymore. It's just Artemis. He's too in love with him.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, if I ever had a chance to play with Artemis, I'm sure I'd never want to play with anybody else ever before. I have a story about that, but we'll jump into draft instead. We'll do some of this instead. So it was Annie, Caitlyn, Ashe taken off the board, which is a little strange because I don't think Ashe popped up as much, unless we're on 13.5 and this is the rebuffed Ashe.
Yeah, this is 13.5. Yeah, we are.
Okay, this is 13.5. So that is the rebuffed Ashe. The Malphite is a bit of a wacky ban. Am I crazy?
It has seen a lot of play everywhere across the globe on 13.5.
I do know it's good. Don't get me wrong. I
wouldn't have expected it either, because I feel like Pun can just match tank into tank, or just play the Malphite himself. Sounds like a Pun V9 champion for me. Yeah, Cannon another buff champion, but I'm fascinated by the Veigar second rotation pick here.
We love Veigar. In fairness, you look at what they've grabbed. They grabbed Rakan and they've grabbed Sejuani. Yeah. That is Veigar's a great champion. Both of those two. Like, what
but he was picked as a Rakan was picked into Veigar.
You're right. I'm not saying Box Esport is not fumbling a little bit. They also do have an opportunity to pick something that beats the Vygar in the laning phase, which could be punishing
True.
if No-Go decides to pull something out. But at minimum, we're getting some cool stuff, and that's why it looks like they're banning away like melee divers, which is strange because I would think you could also go for siege mages of some kind, and that would be better against not only the Vygar, but just I don't know. Now you've got like the double dive with like the Kennen and the Wukong, so maybe you don't want to pick something super siege oriented. The draft's coming up so fast; it's hard to kind of analyze the position that they're both in.
Yeah. Look at the diving focused champions they did ban, the Yona and the Silas, right? Look at that. Interesting. So a little bit scared of those wildcard kind of champions where maybe something goes wrong and Yona goes 5-0 and you suddenly lose the game. So I always respect these bans against MBE because you know in a standard game you always win. So just eliminate all the weird possibilities that could sway your game. Lucian win rate though.
What a yeah. Bad champion, by the way. Same with the Gragas. The Gragas also has like 30% win rate.
No, it's worse. It's 25.
It's still worse. Okay, yeah, it's really terrible. It was 31, I think, at the beginning of the week, and I'm sure that did not go up over the course of the rest of the week. The Lucian selection is interesting. I know it's into the Zyra Khan. I know there's value here. We've really gotten this far into the draft without a Lee Sin, and Lee Sin still comes through for Tom Rio and or for one of the solo lanes. It is still good in this. I'm pushing this until somebody starts drafting it. It got better in the solo lane by a significant margin. You actually don't have to like max E in order to solo with it. You get full max Q for extra damage. And I thought we were going to get fun things, but the LeBlanc unfortunately not going to get locked in because they are boring. We're not locking Azir after the changes, are we? We're not locking Azir after the changes.
Wait,
this champion has gotten.
Wait, it is locked. No. MBE, come on, read patch notes.
This champion was objectively obliterated by this patch. Like I've seen it, I think 2 times, and both times it got absolutely crushed because of the changes that have been made. So, and we get Lucian Nami on the other side. So
yeah, of course
another 24% win rate champion.
That's the least interesting R5 I've ever seen. When there's a Lucian and the team and the support is still missing. It's like, what could it be? I wonder.
Isn't this the patch that Yumi's still like busted too? Didn't she like re-released on this patch?
I think she's not allowed to be played still.
What do you mean? They only play on this patch for like 5 days before they switch to 13.8 for some reason. That's how the VCS works, right?
I do believe 13.5 is you're not allowed to play Yumi because I haven't seen it in any other region, so I think it's still globally banned. I'm so annoyed that we still haven't seen a single Aurelion Sol. Can we please play this champion? Where is he?
No one plays it. Apparently they just weren't ready for it, and the nerfs keep coming in, so it's one of those things where we're like, wow, this champion's really powerful, and then it will be powerful until it's not anymore, and then no one's gonna play it. So not that we're expecting the VCS to be the innovators and the ones that pull out champions like that. If Aurelion were a jungle champion, maybe we would get a chance, but like we unfortunately don't have the mid lane talent to grab Aurelion Soul and bully people with it.
What do you think about Melio? Your first impression?
So Melio, that Q, the little like rock you throw that like flips behind somebody, the fact that it interrupts not one or
fireball.
two, every single, what is it?
You're playing football. It's a fireball.
Yeah, you're playing football. The thing that it peeves me that it disrupts literally every single melee support's engagement in the entire game, which means that anybody in the VCS that learns it will immediately become the best support. They will instantly get a permaban for their team. Like if Huber or Taki need to learn it immediately, and if they do, that's a permaban. Like literally, no one will be able to do anything against it. So we're starting into game number 1 here. That's interesting. Melio's really cool. Ooh, okay. So No-Go does at least get a little bit of the tech because the first thing you're supposed to do on this is you're supposed to go lethal tempo. So that's a positive thing.
So they changed quite a few things about Azir, right? So they changed some of his attack speed scaling. They did 2 very confusing things to me, because on the one hand, they took away the attack speed buff you generate from W's and from W spamming. So you had 2 attack speed buffs, one from just leveling up W, and then also if you had 3 soldiers, you got that buff doubled. But so they took that attack speed away, and instead of that, they actually gave him base attack speed scaling, which means he scales better now with attack speed, but does not get the natural attack speed of his kit. So actually, you have to invest into attack speed to get to the same kind of attack speed numbers, but in theory, you should be able to get even higher attack speed if you were to build something like attack speed boots, if you think about historical Azir builds, or even the Nashor's Tooth. So yeah, very interested to see where this Azir goes. Yeah,
I'm of the opinion personally that even if you're building attack speed, you're losing out on a decent amount other like things at the beginning of the game. So it used to be that you could build poke and then you would still have some decent attack speed if you get your triple soldier scaling and all of that sort of stuff. And so where I've landed in all this is that while Azir is likely to be buffed and probably will get better over time, the only way you can currently play Azir is to go Hail of Blades, because you can still build a bunch of poke. You can go into Nashers if you absolutely want to, but you got so much more base damage from just having AP compared to anything else that, like, with Hail of Blades, you have a legitimate chance of blowing somebody up with the current scalings if you were to go like Ludens and Rabadons and some of that extra stuff that you had before. That's my opinion. I think that's the only way to play Azir right now, instead of trying for like this weird like Nashers build, because that weird Nashers build, yes, you get better damage than what you would have had, but it just, to me, still doesn't feel like it's where Azir should have landed. That's how I see it.
That's
also,
so sad to me, because
yes.
I used to be, like, when Azir was announced back in 2014, I looked at that kit and was so hyped, because it sounded to me like the coolest kit of all time. I was so interested in this champion. Even though I never play mid lane, I despise mid lane, I actually learned Azir and was decent on the old Azir, and he was that late game fantasy, ultra ranged, very weak early game, attack speed, hyper carry with AP. Just everything about him was fascinating. Then they dumped him down more and more. The longer the game went on, Azir got more and more stupid. They shortened his range, they gave him burst damage, they gave him a shield, they gave him all-in power. Like, he's losing his identity. And I hope this change would put him back into that defensive hyper carry where you just use soldiers to attack for ages.
Ooh. Okay. Well, hanging out here because Pun. Actually, it was a good ward by Pun because he's gonna be able to spot Tomrio. Tomrio just gets a nice Q and that's about it. So nothing crazy right there. Yeah, I too had this weird power fan. So when I first started this game, I started right when Echo came out, and the two champions I latched on to immediately were Azir and Bard, which were two insanely hard to play champions for somebody just starting League of Legends. And I had to learn those two basically from the get-go, which was more. It was some of the most fun I had in this game. Was learning those two champions from start to finish, basically before level 30, before I could even play ranked. So. Eventually, I fell into Varus, and that was my go-to like ranked champion before anybody else. But the Azir was rank 5 before a lot. Bard was rank 5 before anything else. Still my highest rated mastery champion to this day. I have been interested in watching this game because Artemis has started doing a little bit better. Was down a little bit on the first couple of waves to the combination of the Xayah Rakan. And outside of that one gank, we haven't gotten much action. That's a nice little bubble from Huber trying to find something. Okay, well played by Artemis. He danced between Slows and Zodiac right there, and Huber was able to punish at least a little bit.
Very cool outplay there from Artemis. Of course, you do have the tools to do these outplays, but you still have to actually make it work, because if you slightly miscalculate your E dash, you might be caught in the Rakan knockup, and then Xayah can follow up with her feathers, so very nice to see that Artemis is still able to do these kind of things. He actually used his Ignite in the trade before, so... a bit aggressive. We do see quite a lot of Ignite on Lucian and Nami going in the heal, because of course the scaling on the champions goes better towards those summoner spells, right? The heal already gets augmented by the additional healing power, so it makes a lot of sense. It's still a Slow's early lead, and good flash from Yada.
Yeah, and now Dugu kind of stuck in the wrong position, although Yada could have choked the cage up a little bit more, probably pushed him into tower range or gotten something, but not going to be her too harassing, as Yada was able to escape a solid attempt from the no-go Azir to push him into Tomrio. Nothing insane about that one to begin the game. I was looking across everything, so right now Kenan's doing fine. Vygar's winning in the mid lane, which I think Vygar is supposed to beat Azir anyway. So I was really curious when they went, hey, what champion should we use to beat this Vygar? Let's pick Azir. Why not? It's freshly nerfed and also already in a bad matchup Azir into everything else. Like, again, if you're gonna pick a siege mage, pick Vel'Koz. Like, just do something fun. I don't know. Like, don't mess around with the intentions here.
We do have the classic situation that happened so many times over the years when both Victor and Azir were in meta, where Azir blows Flash level 6, and then there's this opening for the next ultimate to come up for almost a secured kill. So I will have my eyes on Yado and to see how he reacts to that one. But now we have a big fight over the first dragon.
So we do. See if the Smite fight's going to go the way of either one of these two junglers without a fight actually coming through. That's an engagement coming in from Zodiac. Not going to get caught by the bubble. Instead, just gonna walk away. Here comes Yato. Yato's ghosting. He's going to be able to find that no-go with no flash because he did it earlier. Is going to get caught out. So it is going to be first blood traded over for the first dragon of the game as Box Esports gets punished for their hubris. Well played by Yato being able to, I think he had Ghost because of the unsealed spellbook coming off the TP as well. Give him a bunch of moves that he was able to catch this team with.
I don't think I've ever seen something so stupid as Veigar walking animation and Ghost. Please do that again, Yato. I know you can't, but awesome. It looked very, very funny. Yato, of course, punishing the Azir for investing his flash aggressively, which is really the opposite of what you expect, right? You expect Azir to push the enemy team, enemy mid laner out of his comfort, blowing his flash, and then the next gank is a secured kill. This has happened so many times over the years into those immobile mages where Azir gets a free kill after level 6 because, well, you only have one flash. But now the Azir probably is on the back foot, and this Veigar is actually very speedy if you look at him, invested early into movement speed. So you should be able to just walk away.
Makes some sense. Veigar loves move speed, so you can get in position for cages and such. You saw an ultimate from Artemis right there popped just to keep Slows and Zodiac on their toes a little bit there. And I was also trying to figure out, I was trying to deduce exactly why it was that we were playing like the Lucian Nami given such a bad win rate, but I forgot that every other enchanter doesn't exist in this game, and so it's the only champion that Huber can actually play. Apparently inside of the VCS, that's the thought process. In fairness, after Vin had like a 1.8% damage share after like a 40-minute game or something like that, I'm not shocked that teams are just like, yeah, no, enchanters aren't allowed to be played anymore.
I'm very sorry. Something happened in the back of my kitchen and I needed to check, but I'm very, very happy that you were able to just talk through it because of course you can.
Of course, yeah. You saw right there, Rift Herald got scooped up by Box Esports on the top side. There was no conflict there at all. Sunmer, for a second, actually had a second of brilliance, but unfortunately is warded off. Drakthar not able to find his way into the top lane. I was talking about a second ago about why it is that that Huber's playing Nami, and we have like a Lucian Nami on the map, and I said I forgot that every other enchanter doesn't exist in the VCS, so this is the only champion you're allowed to play, especially after Vin had that 1.8% damage share. He had like 2,000 damage after a 40-minute game or something like that.
55-minute game.
55, my bad.
It was a 46 damage per minute game. And actually, Beast yesterday invested some time to see if that was the record-breaking game, but no, there was a time. Okay, this is actually a fun game to play as this game is slowed down. Which champion do you think?
Jarvan.
Of course, the support. No, which champion has managed to have multiple games below that threshold of 46 DPM in professional games? Great
question. I am not sure. I would have thought it was Jarvan because I seem to remember, but that game probably didn't go long enough that it mattered. I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to tell. What is a champion that would do that?
Okay, I can give you a hint. It's a champion that has since been reworked and was played support only in that meta and only for a very short period of time.
That's interesting. Okay, I'm not sure. We get a bit of action. Yeah. All right. Give me the answer. Give us all the answer. I gotta know.
It's Kale. Kale support was played a few patches and did no damage whatsoever, apparently.
I am not shocked about that in the slightest. It's been a minute since I heard Kale support.
Yeah, for good reasons, I'd say.
Yeah, I would say the same thing, 100%. I was always shocked that there was never a chance that like the Relic Shield meta, when you had like the 800 damage shield, was never like a Kale meta in any capacity whatsoever. I'm surprised it never popped up with Senna as being a combo on the bot lane, but in fairness, Kale's just a wacky champion in general, so it needs experience, so you really can't put it in a dual lane by any capacity whatsoever.
Okay, I will finish this little tangent off with just giving you a little bit of a tease. Oh no. The Sedge tried to dive him in the top lane. Okay, we need to focus on that. Sunma is really struggling in this lane. Somehow Pan got the solo kill on Sunma while Sunma was under his turret and didn't use his ignite. We need to see what happened there. That is very confusing to me.
Pun didn't lose health here.
I
saw that Pun's health was down to like 1/3. I'm like, okay, at least, did he try to 100 to 0 him and just like mess up or something? No, he literally was chunked already, and Sunmer just dies underneath.
He just took aggro for no reason.
I'm lost. Okay. That's not great. And Sunmer is also building Rod of Ages to start with, so I'm not in a I am not in a silly, goofy mood to appreciate what is going on here. Instead, I will simply be criticizing exactly what happened right there. As again, I was a lot more hyped for Sunmer coming into the split. I thought Sunmer was going to be a sleeper to potentially become like a pretty solid player. But that's not the case. Okay, all right. You know what? All right, I was wrong. Okay, I wanted to see Huber. I was wrong. Bring back Rondo P, please. Okay. Mid lane, Yato did not go down. He's going to TP back to the mid lane. They're going to get 3 plates, and it is split between Tamrio and Nogo. So at least they do get something, because it has been a very rough early game here for the side of Box Esports. As usually their early games go pretty well, but they just have not been able to scrape together anything so far.
So, a very fun little interaction there that doesn't matter in the slightest, but it's still a fun little thing to talk about as a color caster. It's kind of League nerd. Druktha came in there and actually last hit the Shelly, right? So he got the last hit on the Herald that already crashed, and you think, okay, it's only 25 gold, whatever, but it actually gives you stacks towards your Legends progress. So if someone has Legends and you can give the stack over, always do that, because the 25 gold don't matter, but Yado doesn't have the Legends runes, and Druktha does. I'm not sure if it was deliberate, but it's this fun little interaction where Druktha probably gets the next stack of his attack speed, or a tenacity stack, while Yada wouldn't really profit from getting the last hit there.
Yeah. I'm also, I want to throw, it's not even a small amount of critique, it's a little bit of anger towards, I think junglers are particularly uncreative with the picks that you can have. I know that like Wukong is nice for having some engage in a game like this. Yato and Pun have enough to like deal with anybody who comes diving in, and enough dive threat to legitimately be strong enough on their own without doing anything else. Nogo actually pushes directly into Recon.
Oh, what?
And there is exactly 0 follow-up. Exactly 0 from either of these two. As Drakthar comes in for the punish, Artemis absolutely slides in on top of these two. Is not going to die either because of... Oh, I thought Huber first heal. It is not the case. It was just a W coming through. As Artemis flexes on some fools.
Yado had the heal selected in the summoner spells. I was looking at him because he was flashing forwards. I was like, what is he doing?
Flashes, not going to hit it. Okay, Huber also body blocks the Q and tries to prevent Tamrio from finding an angle with the bubble. I was criticizing Huber for the laning phase. They have not been able to punch it. That was extremely well executed from Huber right there, so I will give them that, as that was a very nice play. And again, 2 kills onto Artemis after he slides in. You gotta love when Artemis gets to play as aggressively as he wants.
Okay, but take a look at Yado flashing forward here. What?
God, it's so garbage. It's so garbage.
That was absolutely useless, but also amazing. Please go on, Yado.
Yeah, that was something else. Okay, and then the summoner kill, obviously Yato not as punished for using that one as Huber would have been in that circumstance. As it gets them a plate, it gets them 2 kills under their ADC. They do not get the dragon, which is a bit unfortunate, but they are going to get the Rift Herald, so you're going to continue to advance this gold lead a bit further ahead. Honestly, I don't want to see Drakthar run up to top lane and just pop this up there. Okay. Yato,
what happened here?
What do we do here, bud?
Yeah, he used his flash on the last play, by the way.
Oh,
wait.
Okay,
no, I mean, he still dies to the feather pool. Very good stopwatch there.
All right. Well, you know what? It happens from time to time. That's perfectly fine. ADC for ADC, both of them trading Gale Force and full combos onto the opposing mid laner for something else. As that's almost going to crack mid tower. Not quite. The new Rift Herald is still difficult, I think, to get the bearings of for some of these teams, and so not quite able to put enough damage in. It was 1 or 2 autos is all that's necessary for them to be able to find anything else.
So, Rebel, you have studied the new Azir more than I have, for sure.
A bit.
What exactly is the build? You said you want high burst build, right? So Crown is not really up your alley.
Crown is always fine on Azir because if you can break it. My problem with Crown in this game is who exactly are you denying that burst damage from? Because it should be Artemis, but then you also have to worry about Kennen. You still have to worry about Yato. You still have to worry about it. There's too many champions that have burst that can dive you. Like you should be worried about. So Crown doesn't give you much here. I would rather see Zhonya's, but again, Zhonya's is also rough to build because it's like, okay, then you're not getting damage out of it. Usually I would say if you're going to do what I'm saying, you should do Halo Blades and then Ludens and then like direct to Rabadons is usually what I would say. If not, you go like Shadow Flame for some extra burst, or you go like Void Staff if you're really into a pen team or something like that. But you really want high burst. You can do it with Rod of Ages too, but it is a little slower scaling. You can do Rod of Ages Seraphs if you're really crazy, and go for like an insane scaling Azir build, which is more akin to what I think you're thinking about, especially if you end up with Masters, because then that build is giving you tanky and you're getting strong, but it spikes on like 3-4 items.
Yeah,
so it's like
forever.
You're way down the road. It's a little crazy.
Rod of Ages on Azir sounds completely disgusting to my mind, because I'm used to the old Azir. Rod of Ages Azir just sounds so unbelievably grief. But okay, it's probably possible, because Rod of Ages is just a very good item right now. We also have a Rod of Ages Veigar this time around. Veigar seems to be just building whatever he feels like.
Yeah.
Every game's different for Veigar.
The most common to me, and the one that I always find myself saying, hey, this is what you should be building, is Rod of Ages direct to Rabadons, and then Deadman's after a tier has been built. The tier's already been built, so Yano's going to go Seraphs.
I do not think Deadman's is something I like to hear.
No. Okay, wait, do you know the Deadman's interaction with Veigar, though?
No, wait, is there a special interaction?
You don't break Deadman's if you don't auto-attack. So you don't need Ghost if you take Deadman's and don't auto. So you do not care about anything but the movement speed on that item.
Oh my god, no.
Yeah, that's why. So you said you like the Ghost. If you like that, you get permanent Ghost if you build Deadman's and do nothing else. As mid lane was traded for bot lane right there as Box Esports. They're not down as far as I thought they were going to be at this point in the game.
They
are only
dragons,
17 minutes in. They're down 2,500 gold. They have 2 dragons, like you said, too. So it is a bit of a different game here. Wow, okay, Tamrio just loses decent chunk of his health bar. I thought he was going to try to kick or make an execute against Pump. It just doesn't have the damage for it yet.
It's oh, never mind. What are you doing over here?
Another execute. Nice ultimate. Okay, Pun, can he get the stun? No, he cannot. Instead, we'll just go down.
I will term this the MBE challenge, where the race is just how quickly can you make MBE have objective bounties.
Yes.
And Cerberus is very unsuccessful so far. They gave them 2 dragons. They're also only 2k gold ahead, so this is going to take a while. Cerberus is really far behind in the race.
Yes, they are. Zodiac doesn't get caught. I was waiting for something right there, but there's not going to be much. The one fearful bit of this game is that there is a very fed Artemis with a rapid fire cannon and a Gale Force and a serrated Dirk already done with the Imperial Mandate on Nami. Yep. So anybody who stands against Artemis is just going to get one tap. And slowly they have been crippling these outer towers. Look at this. So Pun, I think, got the entire top tower. That's Yato getting the bot tower. Mid tower got cracked already. They are choking off the map pretty effectively here.
And they have 217 stacks on Yado at 19 minutes. That sounds insanely high to me. I'm not super familiar with the stack numbers, but I seem to remember some Veigars having 150 at 20 minutes, and that was praised on some broadcasts. So he is sitting on 220. That is quite a bit.
It is, yes. Again, when you're not getting pressure, but actually they're getting run to the wrong side of the map, as Zodiac is just going to go down very, very likely. Okay, they're still sprinting away. Huber is the first one into the jungle, so Tamrio could be in a little bit of trouble. Nice little bubble. Oh, he abandoned Zodiac. What a menace.
On the other side, though,
the other side of the map, they're actually getting a bit of something. Is Yato is going to get run down slowly. That slow's picking up. Another. Actually, Huber gets kicked through everybody else. As Artemis has to flash over the wall, Tamrio can easily follow. That's a nice heal to actually get Artemis out of dodge. As Drakthar is the last one remaining, Tamrio flashes over the wall. Now Sunbur's going to continue chasing. Q is going to get it back on top of Drakthar. Can he find another trade kill? No, he can't. As Box. What in the world is this? Your graphics going to be ruined, yo.
Hey, that was actually a really, really nice collapse from Box. Just because Cerberus overchased on the right side of the map, and then Box just instantly collapsed on the left side. Really good play, nice shot calling, good situational awareness, all the things we kind of don't associate with Box, so it's always good to see some growth. But take another look at this collapse. Drakthar comes in, and I think this is a good play from Cerberus, but look at the other side of the map, where Yado, what is Yado doing? What are Pun and Yado doing? Just, they are completely overextending into unknown territory. And of course, there's an Azir. This is just pure disrespect from the side of Cerberus, and of course, this tends to happen against MBE because people after 16 losses in a row, they don't really get that much respect from the other teams. A lot of teams play their substitutes and stuff, but yeah, at least they're finally able to punish some of those oversteps. And we are actually on Soul Point now, so this is getting closer than a lot of other games for MBE. This could be the one, Rebel.
It's not. I don't know. It's strange because I think Cerberus still has this insane team fight to be able to manage, but not being able to access it until this point in the game is still worrying. The fact that also, after all of other things, Box is still down over 1,000 gold, so about 1,500 right now, just off of CS advantages and towers that have been taken is a little bit crazy as well. Tomrio did find that onto Artemis, isn't going to be able to follow it in for anything though. Okay. Yeah, nothing crazy yet. There's still a bit of scaling behind Cerberus' composition because you still have Yato, like you said, doing some really incredible things. When Seraphs is done, when Rabadon's is done, going to be able to put out a ridiculous amount of damage. You do have to be a bit careful because Nogo has been very, very quick on pulling the trigger with this Azir to be able to make things happen.
Yeah, this game is suddenly super tense. And I would still always favor Cerberus because they are the team fighting gods. Even against some other teams, this is still a game state I would favor Cerberus in, but it is closer than a lot of the other games. And now we have to really keep our eyes on Nugu, because he is starting to accelerate ahead. His 2 items finished. He actually went for the Nashor's Tooth build, so high DPS, not super high burst. Which, yeah, might come in handy if the enemy team... Look at the enemy team's champions. They are rather short-ranged, apart from the Viger. So if Artemis overextends, if Druktha goes too far, if Pun goes too far, maybe the Azir can actually clap back with some of his high attack speed. I would like to see his stats. He's probably sitting at something like 1.3, 1.4 attack speed at this point. With just 1 attack speed item with the improved attack speed scaling. So you can really see the changes to Azir playing their part. Also, actually, Slows ahead in CS 2-0-2, 2 items finished on Zarya. I played some Zarya games yesterday. I'm not a good Zarya player, but this is a really, really, really strong position in the game with these 2 items finished.
Okay, just forcing down mid tower here was pretty good from the side of Box Esports.
Really good to see.
They're able to get it down. And now, again, walking into the later stage of the game, I think you are curious, or at least I'm curious about what is Box Esports' strategy, because you're still worrying about Kevin still has a pretty big ultimate, and you've got, I think, 1 member with magic resist at the moment, which is, oh, you've actually got 2. You got Zodiac with a little bit. That's still not crazy. Like, you still have a lot of bursts you have to worry about. There's still the combination with Drakthar in terms of, like, a wombo combo. You're still terrified of Artemis, who's getting closer to an infinity, actually, as a 3rd item, which is a bit awesome to kind of witness. I don't know. We're still very hesitant to say that Box is really, really competitive in this game, at least until we see otherwise. But they've done a great job kind of salvaging what I thought was a more disastrous early game than it should have been, because usually they're the ones that are ahead at least a decent amount of gold to begin, or at least they have a couple more kills, something like that. But in this one, they were not in that case. Instead, they've come back with team fighting more than anything else, which is just a different avenue than we've ever really seen for Box Esports.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's exciting. It's actually a game where it's enjoyable to cast MBE, which has been a little bit rare over the last few weeks. We have to be honest here, because I looked at them in the first week, and I'm not sure if you felt the same, but I assume you did, because you said you don't think they're the worst team ever, even though they're 0-16. When I saw them come in the first few weeks, I was like, oh, I actually see some promise here. I see some mechanics, I see some team fighting. And yeah, they're unfortunate to not win a game, but it's going to be better. And then they slowly descended down the ranks. Maybe the other teams actually got it together, got better, and slowly we started to understand where the big problems lay with MBE. And actually, we are going to examine if they got better in this very game, because the first part is done, right? They made it to the mid-game on even footing. Now we need to see, can they actually be first to an objective? They have 3 dragons, and this is where they struggled the most so far, which is dragon setups, baron setups, being there on time. But they seem to be better, at least this time around.
Okay. That Sunmer locked in the cage. Good. Auto down a little bit. Thankfully, the soldier from Nugu is going to prevent Artemis from just kind of laying into Sunmer right there. One big thing I just noticed, Pun and Yato both finished Blighting Jewels just seconds ago. Like, they both finished it, which means a very mild amount of magic resist is going to get shredded by the side of Cerberus's 2 AP threats. So if those 2 are able to kind of link up and do damage together, it's going to be a very disastrous day for Box Esports if they're not super careful. So pay attention to the positioning of Pun and the positioning of Yato as the fight takes place. Just posturing for positioning, as Cerberus doesn't want to give up this soul. Next wave is not coming in for another 10 seconds, so you have some time. Cerberus could just run for it, although Box Esports, I think, are trying to call their bluff by saying, hey, we'll just run a mid lane, we'll grab this tower if you don't. But I don't know if they've got a time for it. That seems like a bit of a false, they're lying. They're putting up money they don't have right now, Yowei.
Yeah, and they're trying to go Baron for Dragon Trade, but this is taking too much time. This is one of those... I mean, it's getting lower and lower. It's true. I actually misjudged that. Yeah, they might be able to get it. But here's the engage.
That's a big engage. They're going to grab up the Baron in exchange for 1 kill to start with. Now the fight afterwards is all that matters in the slightest. Drakthar gets kicked down. That's a huge play from Pun as the enhanced blast kill gets him directly on top of the 2 full members from Box. 2 are out. Now Drakthar goes back and TP back to make sure that there's going to be something. Yato is going to
It's double TP.
And now you're just going to chase as fast as possible as Sunmer. Oh, it's double TP, like you said. Yeah, Tomrio still trying to get out to the best of his ability, and they're chasing down 1 member at a time. That's
Artemis.
1 down already. Artemis gets a second right there. Now no Yogo. He has to do out the damage.
Nugu's carrying. Nugu's doing it.
Here comes Pun to try to clean things up, but then it was such a big play from Nugu to be able to deny everything, and Box Esports finds another massive play alongside the Baron to be able to take this 3 for 3.
Rebel, they're winning. Nugu is carrying on the new Azir. What is happening?
Okay. I wasn't expecting it anytime soon. Nugu able to put out enough damage on this Azir to really kind of back end this fight on the TP back in. Oh my goodness, it feels like Cerberus is chasing for so long to find these kills. They're just not able to get him quick enough to make it matter.
Cerberus, I thought it was doomed. I thought MBE overcommitted. I thought they should abandon the rest of the team to just save the 2 Baron buffs that got away. But instead, they commit to the team fight, and this was the exact right choice. This was absolutely the correct call, and I didn't think it was happening because Yado actually cut them off on the other side. Look at Yado bought so much time on the TPs on the other side of the fight, but everyone's a little bit too disjointed on Cerberus' side. Look at how they played the team fight. It takes them way too long to actually get on top of slows, and this time the 2 TPs, even though they were delayed by Yado, are already here in the fight, and just now they killed slows, so it's way too late. And Nugu, full HP with the Baron buff, level 15 with a lot of items, just comes in and cleans up the fight. Really nicely done from MBE. Oh, and really just showing off their team fighting, looking much better than before. But what can they do with the Baron?
Yeah, extremely patient play coming out from Nogo as well, or the Nugu as well, as that's going to buy them a lot more space around the map. Again, the biggest thing for me is now, that is probably the 3rd time I've seen over the course of this game where Cerberus has been trying to kill off Tomrio and Zodiac and some of these players, and they just have run away, and there's no chasing power. That's Zodiac very nearly actually does get 1 shot on the course of everything else. Nugu pushes everybody underneath the tower. Is going to get stunned up. Now Pun's got him dead to rights underneath this tower right here. That's going to be a big shutdown. Drakthar in the backline is going to get a lot too. His Pun is able to come in and clean up so much on the backside. And no, Box Esports, we were so ready for you to be able to take your first one.
Okay, it's fine, Durable, it's fine. It's only the Baron. Okay, they squandered the opportunity to get some objectives there, but nothing really happened. The gold is even. They're still on soul point. It's fine, just reset mentally. You still have another chance. You probably have 2 or 3 more fights in you in this game. It's not over yet. I do like their assertiveness and their aggressiveness in this game. They are actually going for it, especially Nugu. Look at him go! I mean, I do have to say, new Azir probably shouldn't go for these kind of plays too often because he's building DPS, but in this case, it did look good. Kind of backfired in the end when all their carries got exposed for over-chasing under tower, but once again, you can reset here, it's fine. Your items are on equal terms. You're only 1k gold down. You're still looking at soul point. So, yeah, we could still see MBE win their first game. Don't question them too much for one little fight.
I like to say that would not be the case. If it were any other team, I would say, okay, they're still fine. They're still well within the bounds of this game. I still have my qualms about Fox Esports.
I do agree
being
with
able
that.
to do something about it. That's the one problem. The biggest problem I have with it is it seemed like that was a disjoint call because you had 2 members that never really even entered that fight in Tomrio. Slows was also like 25% health. So while I do appreciate that Nugu was ready to pull the trigger on what was a solid Azir ultimate and Sunmore was ready on the side, they just did not have enough members to make that warranted compared to anything else, especially when you're diving under a tower where you have to be very crystal clear about what the call is going to be. So again, not super pressed. They've got 30 seconds now to worry about it. Dragon control is a 100% theirs, so the soul very likely going to be theirs as well. Great rocket belt attempt from Pun. He's going to attempt to use the E and the W and the ultimate to stun. That's a lot of damage. But Tomrio is going to be able to heal that up easily. Like you said, I think that's just soul and nothing to be done here from Cerberus' side. It's not the strongest in the world. It is just the Chemtech soul, but it is at least something to be able to hang your hat on for Box Esports.
Yeah, unfortunately also not the champions really to want Hextech Soul on, I believe, because they don't really have the big bruiser that likes to fight from behind, like a Darius or an Olaf or something. They don't have a healing support either. I mean, Rakan technically heals a bit, but Not really. So it's really not the most optimal soul in the world. All your champions are very squishy, all your carries, so you can't really rely on that damage buff later on, or like resistances buff as well when you get low. So really not the greatest soul, but it is a soul. It is the first, I think, the first soul MBE has ever gotten in the VCS. Yes. So that is already a big achievement.
It is. This game is certainly more competitive than we would have anticipated it being the first time when we walked into the series at the beginning. And I don't know whether it's a byproduct of like the addition of Huber and that on the team. I don't know whether it's like the what they're trying to do with the composition on the side of servers. I don't know whether it's servers just fumbling the bag pretty drastically. But Box Esports has looked like a more complete team. But like the culmination of what we've been expecting from them, basically the entire split since we saw them in their first couple of weeks, we're like, okay, this team has a chance to improve, has a chance to get better. We're seeing it for the first time. For Cerberus, this isn't the most disgusting loss in the world if they do take it. You obviously don't want a loss by any standard. They're still very comfortably in second place. So, like, I don't know if that was another thing is they just got caught sleeping on their hands. They're probably going to lose Baron again. It's already down to half health. They're going to try to contest it. Pun would like to get over the wall. Okay, they're pulling off of it pretty quickly. Now they're going to turn. Big ult.
This is risky.
Everything. Going to get double knockup from the Nami, so that's 1-for-1 so far. The Draktar is going to try to chase down Sumner. And no entrance so far from Nuga to be able to put out damage as Tomrio is just kind of getting run at as everybody else.
Nuga is trapped.
You go in the cage. He takes so much damage. And she gets stunned up at the last second, too. And that means Nugu is not going to be available. Sunmer's trying to get chased down by Draktar. They're looking for more on the back end of this one. But they could just turn for Baron now, as there is Tomrio still up. But they do have everybody still here for Cerberus, alongside healing from Huber, could keep them within range of taking this Baron.
Yeah, unfortunately, we see one of the things a lot of VCS teams do. Cerberus is one of the very few teams that is more disciplined. Oh, Tomrio might get in range to steal this
Baron,
one.
Please. Nope. Okay, thank you. Not going to have that. Not going to be in time, as Tomrio is going to be looking for something. Tagging to Artemis.
That was one hit, by the way.
That was something else. Team is very, very strong at this point. Okay, caught up in the box is
376
He actually gets disengaged a little bit. Slows versus Artemis. He gets the kill.
Double kill.
Now Slows gets another as well. A TP in from Pun is going to try to help salvage this situation. It is a couple members gone down. Sunmer now on the front line, but he's not going to be able to do anything. Is a couple kills on the back end. You will take that 2-for-1 here for Slows, as he was able to win the duel up against Artemis with that Bloodthirster. And the team walks away 2 Baron buffs, a little bit of gold, but ultimately Cerberus again taking a bit of a poison pill with that one.
And if you look at this again, there's no need for MBE to turn this drastically into the choke point, into all these champions that love to play in choke points. Veiga is maybe the best champ in the game in choke points, and what can Nugu do in this position? But even before that, you can just stay on Baron. You have such insane Baron speed with Azir and Zarya, and force them to commit into you, because Veiga, if he has to run at you, is much worse than if he can control spaces and he can control choke points, and you have to challenge him in his position. So I feel like MBE made the incorrect call there, got a little too frisky, wanted to go for the fight, and it backfired pretty badly. It's still a very close game. They still have the soul, and it's probably going to come down to maybe even a smite fight. You could try to 50-50 here. Reasonably, if you're 0-16 in games, maybe a 50-50 is the best chance you ever get. So I wouldn't hate that. I do want to point out, though, the last time I saw Yado's stat line, he was sitting on 380 stacks. So this Veiga is absolutely crazy.
He's also got Void done, which means that there's no magic resist in the world that is going to save his team, and will have Rabadon stun on only 1,100 more gold because he just freshly bought that second needlessly large rod. So we're getting to a point. I think it was in that last fight also, Yado had stepped up, hit Slows with a single Q, and then ulted, and that was 75% of the health of Slows with just 2 abilities on her own. So when Rabadon's is done, that's an instant execute, nothing else. They're also delivering stacks for Yado with these Qs. I saw jungle camps being kind of fed into Yado to make sure more AP continues to go into their Veigar, which makes a lot of sense. Just to try to get their one super hyper late game scaler into a very, very comfortable position. I'm liking that from Cerberus. They're doing things necessary to make the late game transition, this late game shift happen. I know it's still going to be difficult, but at minimum, I think Yado has had the most success of anybody on this team inside of team fights. So, although I say that, and Huber's sitting here with 13 assists on 15 kills right now.
Huber's actually quietly having a really good Nami game. He's always been a good Nami player, so it's really not Huber's fault that his team is almost struggling into MBE. But yeah, every time I've seen Yado on screen just last sitting and trying to stack, he has been super efficient. Like, he's been able to line up minions everywhere. He's now on 400 stacks. That means his W is on something like 1.5 second cooldown, and that scales with full AP, so he's sitting on 800 before the death cap comes in, so he probably shoots up to 1.3, 1.4k later. If that ever hits you, you
minions,
are
please.
dead.
Okay. A very rare, I don't want Artemis taking minions argument here, because Yado, you would have loved to have him on Rabadons.
Yeah, that's very true.
Like, you would have loved to have Yado on Rabadons for this fight, because Elder Dragon's coming up in 20 seconds. Mid lane Prio is going over to Cerberus. You have to be a bit careful for Tomrio. You have to be a bit careful for Sunmer. Tomrio's not going to go jumping in, thankfully. It's closed off. Event Horizon is used very early. I was worried Sunmer was just going to be able to jump in on Drakthar or something like that, but they ended up not going for it at all. They're just going to run directly at Elder Dragon. Punny is behind them, clearing out wards. Don't get caught out here, Pun. That is an ultimate. That's an execute.
Again before Dragon.
Ooh.
Second time in a row that Pun just gets caught on the sides before the Dragon spawns. And this is Elder. This could be game. If they play their cards correctly, this is going to persist for more than 2 minutes. So just force the fight. You have really good engage tools. Just run it down mid lane, force the fight, and try to win the game. MBE has the best shot they've ever had at winning a game in VCS.
They do. 2.5 minutes now. They have to be sacrificed here from Cerberus. Although Artemis is running direct up mid lane. Gonna force a back from somebody. Okay, nobody's backed. It's Sunmer who's gonna be backing right now. I don't know that that's the person with the damage. Has a decent sized wave, just has to clear that. Okay, I was wondering if Artemis was gonna say, okay, let's base race, let's do this. Why not? It's not going to happen. Instead, they're gonna try to just clear this away. The decent range from Vygar is gonna probably lose they're gonna lose the inhibitor, but I don't know that they can quite push in for the next play yet, especially without Sunmer being around. Sunmer has TP to join them if they want, but is not going to take it. I don't know, Box. I really want to see them continue to push this pressure, because it's going to take them about a minute to redeploy out on the map and get anywhere important. So it's just bot inhibitor for mid inhibitor if that's all they get with this Elder Dragon.
I think the best call here would just be to group 5 in mid and counter push mid lane, try to get another inhibitor there, and then transition after Elder Dragon onto the Baron, because that should line up in terms of timing pretty well, with bot lane super minions arriving there as well. So forcing Cerberus back into their own base. There is the big item completion, so this time around Yado is sitting on more than 1000 AP. If you ever get close to getting stunned, you probably just evaporate. Even Sunber is potentially in kill range, maybe not from one combo, but maybe from 2 combos. So yeah, this is just a super scary Vygar to play against and to siege against, because of course he's a very good anti-siege champion with all his zone control, all his wave clear too. And it seems like MBE is abandoning their plan to use the Elder Dragon for another fight. They should be able to just get the Baron for free here, because it's too scary to fight into Elder, so at least they can get another objective, but they need to break the base.
They would like that a lot. They're going to head up to top side, and they're going to push this in. They've got one more wave, and then they've got 3 minutes of Baron to be able to push with, which is something to consider. But I don't know. It feels like Box is in uncharted territory, and they're so good in this game. They're like, okay, what do we do? Like, what are we doing to handle this circumstance? Just trying to figure themselves out at the moment before anything else. And they're doing an okay job of it. They're going to lose the Elder Dragon probably right as this tower goes down. It's a question of whether Cerberus is going to get baited into anything, because again, the Elder Dragon's still available, so they're going to get pushed off. Maybe losing inhibitor. Drakthar is in a great flank angle.
Elder Dragon is gone.
Is not quite there yet either. That's an event horizon pop to try to get something. They still don't have vision of anybody else.
Whoa!
Is going to be able to find one execution on the Pun. Has so much damage. Artemis goes in. He's going to get dropped up by Zodiac. Now somewhere in the middle of the event horizon. That's one person down as a Guardian Angel gets.
Oh, the timing!
That's a great bubble. Going to get executed by Vygar immediately, as Drakthar now is going to be able to frontline for this team. Event horizon is going to catch up Sumner, and now Sumner going to go down as well. Only squishy members remaining for the rest of the team. Can you find something? Zodiac is going to get bubbled up yet again. Huber's been insane. In the event horizon, again, locking up too, but Yado, I think, has the mana to actually deal with it. Now another wave coming in. Got to find a way to actually get mana back onto Yado, as that's going to be a tower broken. Bottom tower almost broken as well.
Next is open. Next is open.
They ran out of mana before anything else happened. Yo, now they're going to be attacking that.
Can they do it? Can they do it?
I don't think that they
will.
Gone. They're going to get a game. Box Esports takes a win in the face of 4 members of Cerberus.
Unbelievable! I did not think this would happen today, but MBE breaks the curse. They are not going to be the worst team in history. They are now 1-16. They won a game. They could win the series, but it doesn't even matter if they win the series. They won a game. That's all we came here for.
What in the world? And off the back of a team fight like that, where it looked like Yada was still wrecking people, he ran out of mana, Yoy. I have never seen a late game team fight get one off of someone running out of mana and not being able to cast abilities. That is insane to me. Look at the way that these two teams just manage themselves. A decent amount of damage coming out of every right damage dealer. What an insane performance from Box to be able to use that. I didn't think that the Azir was going to amount to much. Ended up being a massive damage dealer. Eventually, Slows got back into this one, was able to be a massive damage dealer. Tomrio, I think, also a very low-key contributor to the damage, executing puns so many times in fights to prevent them from actually putting out the damage necessary. Everybody was on point. It was a very rare Box esports situation where every one of their members was doing very, very good things.
Unbelievable. They broke the curse. I was kind of cheering for for the negative record, but this is much more exciting because so many of their players actually looked really decent in this game too. Tomrio with a performance that was reminiscent of his start of the split performances, right? Where he looked so much more competent on the jungle champions. Then also Sanma, after a really horrible laning phase in teamfights, looked very good. Assisted his team in a lot of the situations, and Slows with probably his by far best performance so far in the whole season. And not to speak of Nugu, who carried so many of the mid-game teamfights. So the whole Steam team stepped up. They looked much more competent when it came to macro as well, in my opinion. Especially with the Baron calls from Dragon to Baron. They caught out Pan on the side 2 times before the dragon spawned. That kind of won the game low-key in both of those situations, so very impressive stuff. This team's finally here. It took them 8 series to finally arrive at the VCS, but they're here. They won a game.
They are. Now we'll see if they can actually take a series, as we're going to be jumping into game number 2 in just a couple of minutes. Whether or not Cerberus can kind of come back from that, we'll get a chance to see. But I think we're Box appreciators here on the stream today, trying to figure out if they're going to be able to grab up their second win of the day, their first series of the year. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody, to our final day of the Week 5 of VCS English, as we just saw Box Esports take their first win of the split, which is insane. Everybody get hype, get excited. We talk about Cerberus's thoughts on scapegoating some of their players and benching certain people, but that doesn't matter in the slightest because Box Esports gets their first win. Now they're only one game from getting their first series of the split, which is kind of cool, especially against our number 2 team. Yoli, what are your thoughts on that? Let's start there. Box Esports could have taken this win against anybody. They took it against the number 2 team in the region right now. What in the world is that all about?
Yeah, very strange. Actually, kind of something that happens regularly. If you think historically about the really bad teams, wasn't there this NA team that went 0-9, then won against the number 1 team too? Phoenix 1, I believe it was, in like season 6. They went 0-9, then beat teams TSM, and TSM went 17-1 that season. So if they hadn't lost against the worst team in the league, they would have been perfect. I think this has happened surprisingly many times in the history of League, where people probably just overlook the worst team, or they just don't take them seriously. And honestly, there were some... I do want to praise MBE. I think this was a really well-played game from them, but also there were one or two instances where Cerberus really just lost their minds in positioning. I think one of the most important ones was the team fight before Dragon number 3, I believe it was, where Cerberus found this angle from down the river, and then Yado and I believe Punnet was just stepped into unknown territory and got one-shot by Nugu. And it is a good play by Nugu, but it's also so disrespectful by Yado. Why would you walk there while the rest of your team is just annihilating them on the other side of the screen? Just stay under tower and chill. Like, that's all they had to do.
Cerberus felt a lot more disjoint in that series than I think we've seen them the vast majority of the split, especially Pun. Just again, Pun is not usually known as somebody who's playing these big damage carry. Jax is usually the highest extent of it. So to see the Kennen just get snacked up or snatched up immediately was a very different look, in my opinion, compared to what we normally see from Pun. And I thought, okay, yeah, flanking champion usually plays some tanks that like to do the same thing. Like, it can't be that crazy, right? Like, it can't be that insane of a difference between the two. I could not be more wrong, because obviously Box Esports did a really good job of picking off the Kennen and making sure that was going to be a completely worthless endeavor, that the Kennen was not going to be able to get onto anything in specific.
And I believe the Kennen is still winless. Let me very quickly check that, because the last time I cast the Kennen, it was actually winless in the league. So it's not looking great. For some reason, people are really struggling. No, it's actually 5-5 now. That
Huge.
Very confusing. Okay, it lost, won a few games. Of course, Hero won. Kiaya, of course, 4 games played. So yeah, Kiaya is kind of skewing the Kennen picks back. Yeah, okay, but it used to be very bad in the VCS. If you take away the Kiaya games, no one's really finding a lot of success there. Kratos, of course, had a really good Kennen game the other day as well, on Team Secret yesterday, actually. But yeah, a lot of weird performances. Yoshino, the first time we saw the Kennen, was just completely out of position all the time. Now Pan just running around, getting caught every single play. So the Kennen players really need to think about... I think they're trying too hard for flanks. Sometimes you can just play Kennen as a peel champion. Just sit on your Lucian, give him space to carry, and if the enemy team tries to dive your backline, you just activate your ultimate and they die. So I feel like some of the Cannons we have seen have just tried a little too hard to be those flanking playmakers, the Hasmet of old, where the whole game gets decided from the SMAP level Season 6 ultimate into G2, and everyone just dies instantly. Sometimes you can just keep it simple and just stay with your team, activate your ultimate, and you just insta-win.
Well, the cool thing is there's actually a Kennen build that does what you're talking about, and there's actually a Kennen build that does much better in the side lane, which is good against tanks or people that you're putting in beefy against it. So if you see Malphite, if you see Sejuani, if you see Scion, if you see anything like that, you go Airy or you go Conqueror, and then you throw Riftmaker onto your build. You're done. Like, you win the side lane. You win a lot of team fights because you still have a bunch of penetration. I've seen that a lot, and it works so well. Guess who the two people who have done that in this inside of the league who understand that build path is viable? Kratos and Kiaya, my apologies. They understand the Kennen better. So what I'm looking for is, like, yes, I think Yashio's played it. I think Sunburst played it. I think Pun has played it. They're all doing the Rocket Belt. Rocket Belt, Is it good in certain circumstances? Yes. If you're a Giga Chat and you're finding the backline danks and you're finding like the ADC in every single fight, sure, that's going to work for you. Otherwise, play 1-1 against your lane. Go for the Riftmaker and just play the cannon out, like you said.
Yeah, funnily enough, I just looked at the stats too. 3 games played on Riftmaker, all 3 wins, and if you take those away, the rest of the Canon stats are really horrible. Then it's 2-5. So, might be a build thing, even though I do like, conceptually, the Rocket Belt makes a lot of sense, but people seem to be overplaying the Rocket Belt, right? Where they just go a little too hard, and sometimes you just need to chill a little bit more. I would like to see more Cannon. I always feel like Cannon is that kind of champion that makes the game very interesting, because it is a very simple champion that has a very clear win condition, but everyone needs to be aware of that. Everyone knows what Cannon does, but how will Cannon be played, right? I like those champions because they make the game so simple in one way, but also so tense in the other. This is also why I want to see Aurelion Sol more, because everyone knows he's going to scale to oblivion, and he's gonna just shoot the stars on you in the late game. So what are you going to do to attack him and prevent him from doing that? Kassadin is another example where I really like to watch Kassadin games, because it's always this tense situation that can he actually come together even from behind? Can he find the angle? Can he be DR1 from week number 2? So yeah, I'm always hoping for those kind of one-dimensional champions, because they form such an interesting situation in pro play.
So let's jump back to Cerberus now, because Cerberus are the ones that are second place in the league. They're currently sitting at 7-2. They've got a fine game score again. They're getting closer to just locking their spot, and they still have plenty of time. I think they still have Team Secret on the docket. I can't remember every single team. I'll look through it right now as we speak. But Cerberus have questions to answer now, because actually, if I'm being quite honest, Cerberus actually has a pretty rough schedule to end the remainder of the season, because Cerberus has Wales next week as their only game, which happens a week from today. Then they've got GAM to open up week 7.
Oh, wow.
And then they've got Team Secret, and then they've got SBTCE. So they've got basically 3 of the top 4 teams that currently sit in the league. And then they've got 1 game against Team Secret, who is still Team Secret. Again, they're sitting at 3-6, but this team still has good players. Like they've showed off some. So
yeah,
like,
with Kiang, they've looked so much better. With their new jungler Kiang, they've looked so much better. They are competitive now. Yeah.
Kiang and Kratos, I think, were both really, really solid additions to the team, and I think they could look quite good as the region goes on. So again, back half of the split could be really rough for Cerberus, which is why I don't want to see them start sliding now.
Yeah, I mean,
is it an ego angle? Is it do we go back to Ron OP? Is it a draft problem? Like, what happened in this game that like is diagnosable for the squad to not have the backslide happen?
I mean, I do think we both agree that the draft wasn't optimal, right? The draft had some flaws that were exploited by MBE, and I feel like if you just play a more traditional long-range draft where you play around Artemis, or even something like the Samira draft again, it should be easier for you to execute. The blind Veigar, even though the Veigar got an insane number of stacks in this game, I don't think they actually played the Veigar very well, because in the end they got caught a few times. He looked okay on the champion, not amazing. I think his farming was insane, but the actual team fighting from Yada was nothing special, and I think Nugu actually outperformed him in terms of mid laners, so I'm a little bit curious as to what they're going to do with the draft. I felt like their first rotation was a bit too disrespectful, so maybe don't drop the Veigar blind pick. Maybe look at something like contesting the Xayah Rakan, because in my opinion, slows should never be even in lane against Artemis. So if you take the Xayah again, maybe first pick the Xayah for Artemis, that should be a win condition in itself, right? He's supposed to be the best ADC in the league, and against the worst ADC in the league, that should be too much of a difference to ever make up for MBE. So I think attacking bot lane is probably the number 1 win condition here in this series for Cerberus, and just put Artemis on a really strong laning champion like the Xayah again. Just go from there.
We'll see if it ends up being that way. I'm also curious about other like types of champions that I've seen before. So like Pun, why have we not gotten a Cho'Gath for Pun? How is that not something that they've worked on?
Where's the mouth?
Cho'Gath's super strong, and that's exactly the type of champion Pun would be playing. Like I don't get why that's not in consideration. But then you also have like Huber and Ron OP. Can you get more creative with how you're using Huber? Otherwise, why leave Ron OP? Why even make the substitution happen in the first place? Because you don't put in Huber over Ron OP to be playing. I know Lucianami's fine, But like, I would never make that swap. I would say, okay, if we're gonna play something enchantery and really enchantery, then Huber comes in. Otherwise, just keep Rano P. Like Rano P is fine on the Nami. You'll play the Nami perfectly, and those two have played a lot more League of Legends together than Artemis and Huber have. So even more important, again, does Ego come in? That is my big question. We have seen Ego bully this exact matchup with Lee Sin and win the game for Cerberus. Why not just put him in and let him win the series for you on his own if that's going to be the case?
We finally have draft. It took forever. There was something happening. And of course, when we drop into draft, it's halfway done. Thank you very much, VCS. Here we go. They give up the Zaya Rakan over to MBE again.
Oh.
So MBE has their same setup again, but this time it's Jinx for Artemis. That's scary.
Artemis, Jinx, and Rano P's back in with Thresh. I like that Huber's being scapegoated. Thank you very much, Cerberus. Probably one of the best performing players on the team. Just gets thrown right back out. Interesting. And the Lee Sin does come in, but it's not going to be Ego. It is going to be Drakthar instead. That ends up getting grabbed up here. So I'm already liking what I'm seeing more. I think Drakthar is a really, really good Lee Sin player. I know Ego's probably a better Lee Sin player, but I do like Drakthar's Lee Sin. I think it's got a lot of benefit to it. And having Artemis on Jinx is a terrifying prospect because, yes, it doesn't have that same, like, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to do a bunch of damage and I'm going to be the initiator type ADC vibe, but it does mean that back end of the fight, if you get a kill and you get excited, then Artemis gets to carry the fight. Then Artemis can step up into the pocket and start putting out the damage that you would want.
Cerberus once again ban away the Malphite. In this case, it's probably to protect Artemis a little bit better because playing against Rakan, Wukong, and Malphite as a Jinx sounds absolutely dismal. I do not want to do that. So yeah, I can see it. I'm a little bit confused as to why they're not putting a high priority on this Rock, especially with Pun in their team. Should be a good champion for him. But yeah, so far 2 games, 2 bans for Cerberus against the Malphite. Jace and Sion locked away. Jace is a curious one to me. I'm not entirely sure whether Jace was, at which player Jace was aimed. But yeah, that's one of those early lane dominant champions that's removed from the Rift. And Sion, though very different ideas here for MBE. They're scared of 2 very different things. But it makes sense to me to ban away the Sion. Now this opens up... Oh no, don't go the Nessus again. Please never do the Nessus again. We do not want to see that doc on the Rift. How is Cho'Gath into the Gnar? Can we play Cho'Gath here?
I don't see a reason why not. I mean, Gnar's always got the Gnar problem of being a range champion with percentage health, but like, Cho'Gath is Cho'Gath. You hit mini Gnar with a single knockup, that's a quarter of his health bar. Like, you come in and you chop him, it's nothing crazy. I'm really shocked that we might not get it. Oh, okay. Is there an opening for it? This is interesting. Okay. Actually, there might be. Okay, so the Lee Sin causes a lot of problems for a champion that I'm hoping that they grab. There's no way in hell that they're going to end up grabbing it. But there is a response to Ahri that I've seen a couple of times on this patch out of Korea and out of LPL, not in the big leagues, but in some of the solo queue games that I watch, which is actually AP Kog'Maw. It sounds ridiculous, but I've seen it. It works so well. LeBlanc, I would also be a really big fan of because I have not seen the new LeBlanc yet in competitive, and it looks like that's where they're going to lock in. I'm much more excited about this actually because AP Kog'Maw, while I do love it and it is still my baby, is never going to get played in a legitimate region in any capacity whatsoever. I was hoping because we're in the goons of the VCS, maybe there's a chance, but instead we get the LeBlanc. I'm hyped for this. Again, LeBlanc changes were insane. I have not seen enough of this champion by any standard whatsoever, and we're finally getting a good look at it.
I've seen it have it a few times. So my just looking at the compositions, MBE's comp is very aggressive. It's very short ranged. It has insane engage and good flanking potential, but a little bit of the range is a little bit of an issue, especially into the likes of Thresh, Jinx. I'd say they're on a little bit of a timer in this game in particular. They did play a very assertive kind of style in the first game, so I do like them doubling down on this engage-heavy composition with a lot of where they can really just play their solo queue style of going in all the time. I don't hate it. I'm not sure if it's the best way to beat Cerberus today, but they are 1-0 up. They're feeling better than ever before today. They've won a game. It's Zodiac's birthday, and they gave him the best present ever, so it's good to see. But on the other side, I think Cerberus has actually crafted a much more playable composition, especially in team fights. They put Artemis on a hyper carry and a Pan on a tank, so all the things we like about them, and then a very proactive mid jungle between Yada and Drakthar, so that should carry them to the later stages where Artemis can take over. So I feel like Cerberus just went back to the drawing board. We went back to page number 1, was in the Cerberus book. It read pick, tank, top, and Artemis hyper carry, and they just went with that. So it should work out, just as we have seen so many times before.
Yeah, what is it? I think exactly scrawled on it's a scroll somewhere on the first page. It's just tank top, control mage mid lane, any jungler that can pilot Lee Sin, and then hyper carry. And that's it. That's the formula for Cerberus Esports, which is precisely what we're going to get walking into this one, as we're going to be going into game number 2, Vox Esports taking on Cerberus, trying to get their first win of the split. They got the first win, trying to get the first series win of the entire split. And how do you get more comfortable than literally anything on Cerberus Esports? I feel like this is almost picture perfect what I would see from this competition if they got everything that they wanted. So you got Pun on a tank, especially like Cassante. I think that's a perfect champion. I'm surprised we haven't seen more of that for Pun. And then Lee Sin, whether it's Ego or Drakthar, I think this is the right champion, although I prefer Graves for Drakthar. I do think that the Lee Sin's perfectly fine. Great playmaker for him. Yado on his Ahri, which was the best champion he played all last night. He was like undefeated on this champion, and he was terrible on everything else. So getting Yado back on comfort. And then you've got Artemis on a super hyper carry, probably one of my favorites to see him on with the Jinx. And then Rano P, the only thing that's missing from this is the Alistar, because that's probably more Rano P style. But otherwise, you have Thanos composition coming in for Cerberus here.
Yeah. Whoa. We have a bot lane
immediate
fight.
level 1 play. I actually want to see them. I kind of wanted to see them keep going. Although they did burn 2 summoners. They actually both burned Cleanse and Ignite to start off that one. But I kind of wanted to see more.
But very volatile now. Only Flash is available. But I want to go back to the LeBlanc because you were so hyped. So I'm now very interested to hear you talk about the LeBlanc. Tell me a bit about your expectation for new LeBlanc and what makes her a little bit different. We saw new Azir, so today it seems like Nuga is just treating us to reworked champions.
Yeah, so the LeBlanc's really cool because number 1, her wave control got infinitely better. I don't know if you know what the Q change was. The Q change, if you hit a minion, first off, it does a little bit of bonus damage and also returns 100% of the mana you spent on the ability, which means your Q is now a farming tool. Very, very easily. That's step number 1.
Like kind of like Annie Q.
Exactly, it's like Annie Q, which is quite nice with a little bit of bonus damage. That's why a lot of people are maxing it first, so you go to like Q max to begin the laning phase, which is why I'm a little bit interested why Nogo went for the first strike, because you can get good value out of it. But I've seen Airy a lot in the laning phase, and that's because you literally will dump 2 Qs into somebody, and that's all you'll do. The champion's become a poke champion, believe it or not, during the course of the laning phase, which has improved the laning of LeBlanc, which has been, in my opinion, the hardest part of playing LeBlanc in like ever since she got some reworks and some touch-ups, is that the lane hasn't been as dominant, but after you get your first, second item, then she becomes the pure unadulterated assassin. So what they did to improve her was they said, hey, let's make her laning phase a bit better, which is why First Strike makes some sense, and I think Ahri makes some sense. If it's somebody you're bullying, you go Ahri. It's harder to do that against Ahri, so you go First Strike for some bonus gold. It's a little bit of scaling to begin the game, and a little bit of bonus damage if you really, really want it, but it's mostly to get under your item spikes pretty quickly to ensure that you're ready and raring to go. Still have to wait for second item before you become like a full assassin champion before anything else, but again, the laning phase has improved dramatically from where it was before the changes.
Okay. So we should see her be a little bit quieter than maybe we would have expected from prior iterations, especially in the laning phase. But maybe Drakthar can punish this one. Oh, he...
Wolf. Gonna miss the Q. Here's Tomrio too. Both junglers just here to siphon some experience from their mid laners.
Yeah, it looks like Tomrio just wants to fix the wave that was pushed in here. Yeah, both junglers just meeting and immediately departing from the mid lane again because they don't want to see each other. They kind of just hate being on the same screen together. They just want to get kills on the lanes. So nothing really happened so far. Also, respect Artemis going back early on to purchase a cull. Something I like to do a lot as well, especially in quiet lanes where you don't expect to do much. So yeah, Artemis just ready to get... Ooh, actually forcing the flash out of Nugu.
Really well played from Nugu to not get hit up by that Q, though.
Very, very nice.
Should buy enough space for probably enough space for a decent push in here from Yado if Yado wants another back. But both of these two have actually backed and teleported back to lane already. So
with the same items too.
Weird. Yeah, with the same exact items. The only difference is DMATs are done for Nugu, so that means Nugu is actually going to have decent wave pressure here with Ws and Qs kind of being stacked up. In fact, Nugu's not even going for the Q max. He actually went an extra level into distortion. I think because there's no D max from Yato, he knows now he can have pushing power with W and Q on top of it. So like Nugu, if you go up to 3 points in distortion, now you have better wave control and you can start accessing mid fight. So now you become a roaming champion a little bit more than you would in a normal matchup as Nugu. So Nugu's showing off some expertise on champion builds. I'm loving this from him today.
Yeah, unfortunately, in terms of just pure play, he is really struggling to keep up with the Yato's pressure. He has now called both his support and his jungler to fix the wave for him because he's struggling so much in the 1v1. Also, both of these mid laners going Doran's ring and the corrupting pot, so it's just perma sustain on both sides. It's just a war of attrition that never ever ends because everyone has so many resources to attack into. So mid lane is a little silly in this game, but unfortunately all the other lanes are very quiet as well. So it's just one of those new VCS style games where nothing happens for 50 minutes.
Interesting. It's not something we're accustomed to, Yolway. I missed the days of the 18 kills by 5 minutes into it because we were just constantly perma-fighting. Or my personal favorite, which was a 2021 winter where we just coin flipped every single Rift Herald, the entire split, literally at the 8-minute mark, both teams showed up full 5 members and just said, all right, whoever wins this fight wins the game.
Hey, we are still the only competitive region to ever play on the unnerved original Chemtech Drake. And we actually had a game where a team came back against the Chemtech Soul, against the unnerved Chemtech Soul.
Okay, hold on a minute. That also involved a very rough glitch that meant that the Chemtech Soul didn't work on somebody.
Yeah, you're right.
Because it was so broken. Not that I'm going to give any loss. Saigon Buffalo was really bad. That's poor Froggy's Rise is just going to get... that clip's going to live forever in infamy. Nothing that he died with the Chemtech Drake and cost the team quite a bit. Good times. Reminiscing about old VCS.
Also, Cerberus just walked up to MBE, told them to go away, and took the dragon right in front of their noses. And MBE respected that. Okay, MBE is a little scared. I think they will play this game a little bit more carefully because they're so hyped
Pun
now.
Win these? Aw. I thought Pun was going to go for it. Tom Rio did have to burn the smite for it, though. He was terrified he wasn't going to be able to confirm it. Pun just gives him a little bit of smacking around. But yeah, Cerberus just took their lunch money a little bit a couple of times. Pun walked into River freely. They grabbed the dragon. That's some bullying right there.
Oh,
he missed the chain.
Very close. Now, no ultimate for Nugu. Can they do anything about it? He doesn't have flash, remember? So if the charm lands, he's dead. Mid lane, please! Mid lane!
Okay, and nope, doesn't matter. We're too busy. Look at that. Look at that farm. Slows. Nuts.
Look at that.
Look at that. Perfect farming. Insane. Oh, top lane a fight. There we go. All right. Had to be flash from Sunmer. As Pun. Going Pun V9 right now. Absolutely insane on this Cassante. Dracthar's here for the cover for Tomrio as well. He's not going to end up getting anything. Rift Herald is going to be on the board. So with the mid lane pressure looking like that's going to be the case. I wonder if we get a replay. Oh, hey, look at that. All right.
Yeah.
Like you had said, let's see if it was a charm or not.
Yeah, it's ult into charm into Lee Sin collapsing. Yep.
That was awful. Like, that was not my favorite play I've ever seen from Nugu. So that was he just kind of stood there and everything happened around him. Again, he got wedgied right there in the mid lane as Cerberus is playing a lot more bullying of a style. Dracthar did have to leave the Rift Herald. The comfort and protection of the Rift Herald. Nugu's redeployment onto the map did prevent that from going down. Zodiac is here. His Pun is also going to enter into the fight. Summoner is at half health. That is an instant engage into Dracthar. You are not allowed to show your face here at all. As Pun is going to get chased out of the top side of the map. Sunmer going to try to chase him down. Pun is going to go down eventually to the Gnar as the strike back. They've been getting bullied, and finally Revenge of the Bullies comes in. Box Esports says, I have had enough. 2 kills and a Rift Herald over to this squad as they're going to get a massive gold injection.
Well, MBE strike back, and at least they get some gold onto their targets here. But, I mean, Pun, once again, Pun this series is really just not finding the mark, unfortunately. Hopefully he can step up in this game, because this is now looking a little dangerous. This is MBE for 2 games in a row, actually playing a close early game against Cerberus. And yes, Cerberus is not the greatest early game team, but neither is MBE.
Oh, what in the world?
One more?
So close. No, Artemis shorted his traps, though. That was the problem. Now Nugu's in a little bit of trouble as well. Yato's going to be able to chase him down. Flash forced out from Nugu. as that is not going to end up being his demise. Again, though, like Artemis just barely short of the traps, which would have been the execution on his Zodiac, did shove him out, and now there's a dive potential as Drakthar is underneath of the bottom tower. Oh, actually, just going to take up the Grump. Going to let them farm away at this tower, get a couple of plates. I feel like they could have kicked Zodiac into the rest of the team, did fine right there, and gotten an additional kill. Instead, just going to yoink away a Grump, walk out of the jungle, hands free, nothing crazy. Cerberus even up the gold right there.
Yeah, good play. And Cerberus, I think in this game, is looking to control the dragon a little bit better than last game because, of course, they lost their way in the bot lane river. They traded first dragon last game against first Rift Herald, and this time it went the exact other way. And I feel like in a game where both teams are looking to teamfight in the late game, where you can't accelerate the early game too heavily, the first dragon always goes a little bit better in terms of scaling wars compared to the first Rift Herald. So I think Cerberus made the correct adjustment. Yeah, this is just going to be one plating because there's literally not a single bit of damage on this tower so far, because Yado has been playing the laning phase unbelievably well into Nugu, completely out pushing him and just out trading him from start to finish. So.
Yeah, in spite of Nugu's access of some of the new champions, the expertise on Ahri by Yado has been easily overshadowing that by any capacity whatsoever. Is like you said, Nugu has pulled so much resource from the remainder of the map, so much other stuff, and is still down 10 minions, 11 minions. Artemis is still, or my apologies, Yado is still out trading him ridiculously. So that's unbelievable.
Yeah, the game is still even though, so MBE holding up pretty well. I am a little bit worried about Nugu on this champion because he doesn't look too confident, and it looks like he's a little too nervous on this new champion. Where do you think LeBlanc goes if she doesn't get an early lead? Is it still a big worry, or does she actually do better now?
I mean, you're fine as long as you get into, like, if you get out of second dragon territory without being so far down that you cannot assassinate people, you're okay. That's perfectly fine. I think, like, this champion is no longer just, like, the early game menace of old. This is why I don't think the Lissandra counter works as well anymore. Like, the champion just has not been the same as it was. You don't play super aggressive at the beginning. That's why Lissandra used to beat her with Aftershock, because it's like, okay, LeBlanc has to win the landing phase. So if I go Aftershock, I deny her all in, I end up killing her, and then, like, you know, LeBlanc is dead. Now LeBlanc plays for second item, and it's like, okay, like Lissandra now is dead as a champion, and now you have no way of counteracting her, and it's gotten even worse with the new changes. So I think you're fine if you're Nugu. I just worry that Nugu is not doing the right things on this. As Sunmer gonna get shoved back, gonna get ulted back like Asante. It's just dead. Woo! Goodness gracious, Box Esports.
Take a look at that flash timer. That is beautifully done there. Just timing the flash to perfection. It's just coming up now, a few seconds away. So Summer, he felt safe. You always feel a little bit safer when you see your flash timer tick down to 10 seconds. You're there, nothing can happen to me. But they punish exactly that timing.
Right.
Oh, nicely done.
Artemis saved, making sure. Nice play by Rado P, ensuring that the AD is not going to go down. Although, it was interesting. I thought they would play for more plates on the top side. They did get the 2, but that was about it. So they got the kill and the 2 plates in exchange for the dragon on bottom side.
Yeah, not the biggest fan either. I literally just set up their Dragon Snowball as the win condition, and then they completely disregard that once again. But at least Artemis is farming really nicely and keeping safe. He's now has completed his cull, so the purchase is gonna come and pay some dividends. He is behind in items, but yeah, with the cull purchase, that makes some sense. He also lost a few platings. But I think Artemis is in a good position to step up and be the main carry in this game to bail Cerberus out, because of course they don't want to lose the series against MBE. One game doesn't really matter in the long run. We are playing best of 3s, and game difference can be a deciding factor, but only if you tie. So this team is still very far ahead of their competitors. So as long as they make sure that they win the series in the end, everything is fine. But they need to actually win the series. You can't afford to lose another game to MBE.
You cannot. You don't want to, at minimum. Again, it's too crazy of a circumstance here for them to not be able to manage these types of things. Like it's a circumstance where it's like I worry for this team because Cerberus has this really bad history of backsliding, and they still have to play 3 of the top teams in the league. So you're pretty sure you're going to lose to GAM. That's kind of a foregone conclusion most of the time anyway, in the same way that this should have been a win in a lot of circumstances. And you're still playing against teams that are right by you in the standings, like Wales and SBTCE. So there's a fear that like they might not hit 8 wins, which I know you said was the cutoff for playoffs. Yep. But when they've got 3 series left and they're losing against the bottom team in the league, if they can't figure things out, it could be really, really rough. So I am a little bit hesitant to say it's okay to lose a series like this because you've got space. Because again, it's not impossible to lose every other series on the back end of this split when you've got teams directly behind you trying to do the exact same thing, trying to make that qualification for playoffs. Cerberus has to do a little bit better. So it would be nice to see them turn this around, just take their 8th win of the split, try to get themselves in a better position for playoffs. Really, really don't put themselves in a corner where it's like, okay, they have to worry about other teams' success more than their own than anything else.
Cerberus approaching from different sides. They want to corral them into a fight. That was very close to hitting slows there. But MBE playing this situation a little bit more defensively. I am in 2 minds about if I like it or not. At least they're keeping themselves safe, but I feel like they're giving up objectives a little too easy, or positioning on objectives, especially on the top side. Pan has been playing with so much confidence, sometimes overconfidence, but also buying so much space for his team. Look at him once again. He kind of just solo scared them off the topside objective, and it's another 3-1 for Cerberus there. So Cerberus getting back into good position. If you look at their gold lead, they're actually ahead by 1.5k, so they are slowly but surely getting control in this game.
They are, and especially with the Rift Herald now, I mean, if they're able to force even a couple of auto attacks here, which is exactly what Artemis is going to be doing, yeah, they crack this tower very, very easily, as that's going to be the Rift Herald going down. Artemis, I was worried for a second. There was a big engage coming in, but obviously gets pulled out by Rano P. So big props to Rano P again, being able to allow Artemis with a bit of positioning. Pun is going to get almost brought down. That shield might be enough. Yeah, just gonna get him out. That was so risky. I thought Pun was dead to rights. That's why I wasn't even talking about what was happening on the bottom side. I was like, yeah, Pun just got executed, but not the case. Instead, Box Esports burns a bunch, not able to get a kill onto Artemis or onto Pun right there. So they just lose the mid lane tower for nothing.
They try to punish, and they're trying so hard in this game. They're playing a decent game, but they're just slowly falling behind the curve. It's not over, definitely not over. They have a dragon, they are scaling alright, they have a lot of playmaking potential on their team. But it just feels inevitable that Cerberus is gonna ultimately just win a team fight and get ahead. But honestly, we thought the same in the last game. So MB is still playing a very close series, probably their best series by far. I mean, they won a game, which they haven't been able to before, so it's per definition their best series, but also just the level of play is much higher than some of what we've seen from this team before. They are going to lose another dragon of this reset, so it's going to be dragon number 2 for Cerberus, but that's alright for MBE. It's very far away from Soul still. It's not number 3, so MBE has some time to step back, think about how they want to play the rest of the game, and then maybe at the next dragon fight in 5 minutes, find a better position in the river.
Okay. The game's going to go for a distance, which is weird, because this is how I think Box Esports really took the last one, is that they got into a stage of the game that was like a little bit further in. And we do know that obviously Cerberus is good at team fighting, but it was provable that Box Esports could win in the late game if the right circumstance kind of arose. Slows is not farming poorly by any standard whatsoever. It's kind of right there alongside the rest of the team. You still have some solid knockup. Nugu is still a beast as well, slowly scaling up again. Will be on double pen items here when the Shadow Flame likely gets done alongside the Sword Shoes, which means that there is the threat that Artemis just gets executed rather than getting jumped on and being able to be pulled away by Rano P. So there's avenues for Box Esports, even though they're down a bit of gold. Down their dragon obviously is a decent win condition that could end up, costing him at least a little bit. But they're not out of the woods yet.
Yeah, but we talked about this before the game started, right? We criticized Cerberus' draft for the maybe harder to execute composition, low range composition with Illusion in the last game. This time, oh, never mind. Yado.
Okay. Just dead. Not much to say. Yep. A lot of members kind of dogpiled on Yado right there as Box Esports.
Good play.
They've actually done this a couple times now where they've just dogpiled on a single member trying to pull some amount of gold, and it works out well because Artemis, or my apologies, Yado, he has Flash, he has Ultimate, he has a lot of escape tools, just can't burn any of them in time. Yeah,
you really wouldn't expect an Ari to be vulnerable to this kind of attack, but just really nicely chain CC from MBE. They strike, and I really like their sense of engage in this series, where they're just so active, they just always look for plays. An old school VCS kind of mindset coming in, and I think it's really good. It's paying dividends in this series, and it's making Cerberus actually reconsider how they play against MBE. Remember last time they played played against each other. It was a pure stomp. Ego came in, and Cerberus kind of took it lightly, and they got away with it. But MBE is a much better team now, and Cerberus has to actually step back and think about this. They have to play a good game to beat this team today.
All right. I love that Box has now come online. It does suck that it's this late in the split, but like we had for a while there, it was like 7 teams competing for playoff, or probably what I would have said is 5 teams competing for playoff spots. Flash did a lot better in this split as well. So there's currently 2 teams sitting at 3 and 6, and we're a ways out from Box being anywhere near even those teams trying to get out of relegation. I think they're for the most part cemented into relegation without anything, and without hoping that Team Secret and Flash both kind of end up in a position where they're below them in the standings, and maybe not mathematically stuck in plans or whatever it is. But the fact that Box is now starting to kind of scale up, starting to get wins, starting to get big plays here against Cerberus is telling that I'm hoping that this team is able to stick around through next split, because it would be nice to see this squad kind of return. It doesn't happen all the time. We always get squads get torn to pieces and then end up getting rebuilt the next kind of split. We don't usually get the exact same roster top to bottom a second time in a row. But if Box continues to have success on the back half of the split, even with very mild improvements, they could become a team that looks better as they find a nice charm on a Tomrio. Not going to get anything else. They're just going to continue pushing for this tower. There's 3 members here, but I do not know that the defense can actually mount effectively. Ziato, another charm, this time a huge execute as Drakthar was able to get a kick. Tomrio not able to get brought down either. Instead, it's just going to be the 1 kill for 1 kill. And the continued pressure onto the top tower as well, but they're not going to be able to clean it up yet. Ziato's going to go back to mid.
Yeah, very much brute forcing their way into the lane there. A very clumsy play, I'd say, for Cerberus, where it's really just trying to outnumber them. They don't really find the play, they don't really have an opening, but they go for the play anyway. It's a 1-for-1 trade, which is alright, but it's not really what you're looking for, especially considering that the kill went to slows, will accelerate his item build a bit. So yeah, really, Cerberus looks a little bit flustered, and I wanted to come back to your point about MBE, because not only thinking about the summer split, which probably is more important for them because they are already locked out of playoffs for this one, but also looking at the last 4 series every team is going to play against them. If they're much better, if they can actually play to the level of VCS teams and punish them for mistakes more than they've been able to do so far, that's such a scary proposition, because this team has nothing to lose, right? They can pick crazy compositions, and you need to win these games because you want to compete for playoffs, and it's such a close race. So every team is now cursing because they thought it was a free game against MBE. They thought MBE was always just in the back pocket as your extra serious, but suddenly it looks like something you have to think about, you have to prepare for. So it's much more interesting for the league.
And even more funny beyond that, the 4 teams that they are playing are actually the 4 teams that are above them in the standings. Because it's SPTCE who sits in 4th, Saigon who sits in 5th, Flash who sits in 6th, and Secret who sits in 7th. So you're talking about worry for relegation, worry for the 4th playoff spot, and then the 2 5th and 6th spots that will confirm you for the next split. You don't have to play in relegation, but you're still stuck there. All of those teams are right in the thick of it. And that's who's playing against them. Like, if they beat Cerberus in a 2-0, you have to be so concerned with what's going to happen. As Yato makes a big play happen, can't quite find the charm onto Tomrio, as he's going to be able to tag the Everfrost, does force the flash out at minimum, so that's going to be a nice grab onto Slow. Slow's going to get jumped on by Drakthar. He's not going to be able to get out from behind. Now Drakthar gets executed! No smite available for this squad now. For the Dragon that could pop up. Cerberus probably just has to walk out. Box isn't really too keen on going in either. As the attempted kill, every defensive measure in the world burnt for Slows, but he was able to keep the angle so Drakthar could not find the insect, and because of that, Box are the ones that now want to walk into the Dragon. They're going to even up the Dragon count, Yolway.
And I once again really have to question what Cerberus is doing today. No time for that.
Oh, okay, now that is disastrous. Yeah. That's terrible.
That's Baron.
LeBlanc going down, 600 gold into Artemis. Does not matter that the Dragon is down now. They're even maybe going to look at Baron. Yeah, they start up Baron. They do need Pun here to tank it. Absolutely. They're going to have Drakthar back. I don't know that they're ready for this. Like, look at this. Right now, Slows is on the bottom side of the map taking Gromp. Sumner is on the bottom side of the map just farming.
It's done.
Tomrio's nowhere near here. They're just now going to see it at 3,400 health. Zodiac would have to absolutely coin flip this out of nowhere, and it's just not going to happen. Huh?
Ah, they should have known that that was an opening because Slows was so far away from the Baron too, but it seems like either MBE just decided to give it up. But yeah, let's focus on this first because this is such an overstep from Drugtha. It's so unnecessary too. You forced everything from Slows out of the fight. Just disengage, regroup with your Jinx, and what can Zarya even do in this teamfight now against Kassanti Jinx? There's no way you ever lose the teamfight if you just regroup with your players. So it's just a little bit of stupidity, a little bit of hubris from the side of Drugtha that gets punished, but then Nugu also jumping into that one and gets punished even more severely as Artemis gets a shutdown and they get the Baron. Now out of nowhere, Cerberus, yes, they lose the Dragon Snowball maybe, but they also get the Baron, so now they're in a good position to advance the game state, and I'm scared to see the scoreboard because there might be an IE sitting on Artemis now.
You never want to give anything like this over to this squad. You do not want to give Artemis any sort of additional firepower beyond anything else that would normally kind of come about. Okay, so maybe this is a bold take. I'm going to throw it out there anyway. I think Yado has been playing some insane League of Legends this split. Like, I don't know that I would be able to give it to Yado over Kadi, like the #1 mid laner of the split, but I do not know that there is even competition for the #2. I like legitimately, I know Glory's usually like around that area, Froggy's usually around that area, Artifact is usually in conversation for #1. I think it is incredibly clear-cut that it's Kadi and then Yado, like in that order. Yado has had I feel like every time I've cast Cerberus, Yado has had awesome games. I'm like, wow, Yado was insane that game. And like, it's every game. And I'm like, at some point, I've just come to the conclusion, I'm like, wow, maybe Yado's just having an amazing split.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a quiet split. I think not a lot of people are going to notice what he's doing because a lot of the carrying is done by Artemis, right? But Yado is certainly a big asset. Speaking of assets, Artemis is dead.
Immediately into backline, Tom Rio is able to help pick off. Now Zodiac is going to go down in response. Summoner now on the front line gets charmed up by Yado, so he's not going to be able to find even anything close to the ultimate that you were going to be looking for. So it is a 2-for-1. Bot lane does go down. Mid lane tower is going to get broken. His Pun was in a very, very good position here. TP to the bottom side of the map to try to respond to everything else as LeBlanc is just going to go split pushing. He's going to be able to find that one tower of response. So all things said and done, I think it's a 2-for-1 and 2 towers to 1 traded back and forth between the two teams. Cerberus did end up with a decent gold lead, but I think it had to not be that big of a Baron buff kind of play. I think they lost a little bit of gold comparatively. If not, it was just a couple of towers that did it.
Look at that damage.
That's LeBlanc. I told you, LeBlanc is not a laning champion. LeBlanc is a scaling champion, dude.
That is absolutely filthy what you just did to Artemis. Usually you go a lot of HP, even you get a lot of HP on Jinx. She's one of the highest HP, or used to be one of the highest HP ADCs too. So you see that kind of one shot on level 13 Jinx is wow. Nugu is really strong in this game, and he's quietly gotten to a point where he can now threaten those one-shots on Artemis, and there's not a lot Artemis can do. You kind of have to rely on Ronopi to flay him away, because Artemis himself, I mean, maybe the Chompers can save him, but it's not an easy game to play on this Jinx.
And it was even crazier because going back, I never mentioned this because I wasn't trying to put him on blast too heavily, but Nugu actually had a really weird kind of build order. That was just again. Pun had so much health and he just did not leave the tower's defense. I swear I thought he was going to walk away, and that's why I wasn't even talking about it, as Zodiac almost gets brought down. Okay, throws the ultimate, does Artemis, and just wildly misses that one. And again, Nugu at the beginning of the game, he went for 2 levels in Q and then waited till level 8 to put 3rd level in. And they got, like, I think max W at level 10 or something, which is just really, really unfathomable. But Nugu knew that he had better lane pressure than Yado did at the beginning of the game, and was able to kind of keep the RA stuck in place a little bit longer by having the D max, by having the W max more than anything else. And now you can see the ramifications of it, that Nugu got out of laning phase mostly unscathed, pick up a couple kills here or there, and now legitimately is one-shotting people, including Pun, who got absolutely wrecked by Nugu underneath of their own tower, setting up this dragon take.
Yeah, and Pun once again, as in game 1, 2 crucial times before the dragon was spawning, he got caught somewhere on the flank. This time he was just running around in mid lane for no reason, thinking his tower could protect him, but Pun is just playing with complete disrespect to the enemy team, and after 2 games where he's been caught over and over again, he should really try to get grip on where he's going in this game, because it's really hurting his team. It's in crucial moments too. Another Dragon over to MBE. They're now on Soul Point. Once again, S in Game 1 is going to be maybe the weakest Soul in the game right now, but I feel like in this series, or at least in this composition, it's much better than in the last game. Yeah, Nugu, damage ranking number 1. Both of the mid laners just completely running away with this game. It could be just who's the better mid laner in the late game, but I feel like LeBlanc is easier to have an impact on in the ultra late stages.
It's a matter of Nugu has higher skill potential to apply this LeBlanc to find assassinations, especially when you got one consistent damage carry on the side of server. You got Artemis, that's it. I'm not saying Ari can't do a lot of damage. Like, I think Yato's doing fine with the Rabadons and with like the Horizon focus. We'll still be doing a bunch of damage. But for the most part, when it comes front to back, when it comes to consistent damage, when it comes to your number 1 carry, you have to keep Artemis alive. Nugu's going to be able to nuke him much, much faster than Artemis is going to be able to get through the entire health bar of Boxy Sports. That's an engage. That was an amazing charm coming in from Yato, trying to find something, and he's going to force out flashes. Tom Rio now is forced completely out of the fight. He's going to grab up mid lane. Nugu goes over the wall to find something, but cannot get even a spell off on.
Look at bot lane, though. Look at bot lane. Okay. They're buying time for the split push.
Yeah, Sumner is just winning the game right now. Is on the other side of the map, and you see that. That's actually Xayah is joining up as well. What? So they're going to try to stall for time. Zodiac came in with the ultimate just to get something, as it's going to be one for everything. Pun has to TP back to the base, as now you could potentially find something. They're going to go diving on him underneath the Baron, and that's going to be one here at the Baron pit. Draktar is able to find a bit of damage. Nugu not going to find the execute onto him whatsoever. TP now onto the Nexus Tower as well to help out the support.
No, he stole it! Tomrio got the Baron!
We left at the last second! And now Artemis is going to clean up the fight around the Baron buff pit, it looks like, but goodness gracious, Fox Esports with the resilience I've never seen before. Grabbed the Baron buff.
Actual good macro from this team. This team used to be by far the worst team in terms of mid and late game macro. Oh, good aim, good aim. Almost hit them there. But they just stole the Baron. They played such an insane pressure game there, escaping the Cerberus collapse in mid lane, and then instantly called their ADC to help with the push, while also contesting the Baron with people just throwing their lives.
How did it get stolen?
Yeah, how did he get in there?
So did Draktar get one? Because at one point Draktar was insane. Okay,
way too early from Draktar. Look at the
what
HP.
Was the kick?
Yeah, it's way too early.
Here's my question. I'm wondering if Nugu one-shots him over the wall is what happens here.
Oh!
He got him with Cyclone!
He did smite as well.
Steal it.
I do think he
did smite, but I think it dropped too early. I think he smote too early. I could be wrong about that. It's tough. We don't get the control replay, so I don't get to look it back one more. I'll probably watch it and we'll talk about it before the next game if we happen to get a next game. But oh my god, Tom Rio comes in clutch this series, gets his team a big Baron to help set up for the next Soul Point too. Oh my goodness.
It's incredible. Now MBE in a really good position. Look at Slows. He's so insanely strong. Look at Nugu. They have the gold advantage. The Dragon is coming up in 1.5 minutes. They are in a winning position in game number 2 against Cerberus.
It's insane to think that Artemis has this much gold, this many kills on Jinx, and we're still talking about Box Esports as having a winning position in this game. This is not a standard way to play. Gotta make sure that there's something left. They're gonna push down another tower. Sunmer is gonna be able to continue the split pushing on the Nard. That's a fight. That's a big fight as well as Stone has the Guardian.
He got him! He got him!
Immediate execute onto Artemis, and that's gonna be that. Now in the backline, I mean, Yato is doing a bit of work trying to find Nogo or Nugu right here. Not gonna be able to get the damage necessary as they find yet another kill on a Pun.
This could be game if they play their cards correctly. They have Baron buff. The Ahri can't really wave clear. They have bot lane streaming in as well. It's 5v3 on the map, and Slowest is actually life-stealing back up to they could finish the game here. They could go 2-0 over Cerberus. They're trying to transition into bot lane.
Unbelievable. They're going to work for it. Zodiac almost gets eviscerated by that Q. He's just going to dab Penguin his way out of that one. Now the charm underneath the tower. Terminal is not going to tank any more of that tower. They're going to push for the end right here, right now. Nice hook from Rano. He's going to stall a little bit longer, so he's going to keep him alive. They don't have the damage for it. They're not going to be able to hold the Nexus. Box Esports comes out of nowhere at the end of week 5 to beat our second place team in a 2-0 Yulway. A 2-0. In what universe did anyone think that that was going to happen? None of them. No one expected this to happen. Boxy Sports suddenly just became public enemy number 1 for all of the 4 teams sitting in front of them. And we now have a season on our hands. What?
I mean, to be honest, right now, they are actually the best friends of all those teams, because they got Cerberus away from playoffs. Cerberus could still fail. They're only on 7 serious wins. We thought they were safe. They were still to play Box Esports, and we all expected a 2-0 today, but not for Box Esports. What just happened?
They're public enemy number one for Secret Flash, Buffalo, and SBTC because they still have to play Box. Like, Box could legitimately, if they play like that, they legitimately could go 5-9 by the end of the split and potentially step out of relegation. That is unbelievable to think that Box Esports now puts that pressure on the rest of these teams. And maybe we're getting a little bit too hypey. Maybe we're putting too much into it. Because, like, it's possible Box Esports just had one off. Maybe this is just Cerberus stumbling out of the gate, couldn't figure out what to do on the day. Box Esports may have just had their number or something. That's all very realistic. I don't think it's probably the most realistic result is that Box Esports goes 1-17 by the end of the split. Or, my apologies, 1-15 by the end of the split.
Yeah, but they look revitalized. They look like an actual VCS team. And even if they lose every single game from now, they do have this one win in the win column that counts for them. They're not going to be the worst team ever. No team has ever went 0-14. We have a 1-13 team, of course, in Flash back in the day in Winter Split, where they looked unbelievably bad. And I think MBE already has a claim to be better than that team, even though they've only won 2 games. But those 2 games looked decisive, they looked aggressive, they knew how to play the game. Their macro is so much improved. I'm so happy to see them improve in that aspect, because their mechanics have always been alright.
And somehow we also have these year-to-year like plot lines that go on in the background, and so we have like the wheel of SPTCE where it's like, oh, they start off good, and then they have internal problems, and we have that whole wheel. We got that meme. I'm sure there's a graphic somewhere of it. But like Cerberus also has this continuing plot line where they do so well in the front half of split, and then the back half they slide. And I'm hoping that's not the case because we are so hyped to see Cerberus be competitive. I think Yato's having a great split. I still want Artemis to do really great things. I think Ronopi's doing well. Pun and Drakthar are fine. The last thing I want is to see Cerberus drop out of playoffs. The last thing I want is to see Cerberus drop out of the number 2 position, because I think that they've done well enough this split to warrant it. There's so much that's not spoken about this series. I thought our plots were basically done at this point. I thought we were mostly going to be talking about like Wales, SBTC, and Saigon Buffalo racing for the final playoff spots, and like who is actually going to get it because they're within one game of one another. But now you've thrown an extra wrinkle into the fold. Where is it Cerberus not playing well? Is it Box Esports that's playing really well? Like only time gets to tell. But we get to open up this random new avenue that we were not expecting to have to worry about in the grand scheme of things. So somehow the VCS just continues to stand on its hind legs and surprise us with these random bouts of nonsense. Even when our games are not completely wild your way, our season's always going to be wild to some extent.
And I want to ask you, who was your MVP for game number 2? Because I think in game number 1, we debated a lot in game as well. We talked about all the players. But it's really hard to say for game number 2 because so many of their players stepped up.
I think Tomrio had a good game and the Baron steal was super impactful, but Nugu had so many assassinations in that game. I think it was tough to pick out a moment where like Sunder or Slows or Zodiac really stood out. I'm not saying they didn't do well. It's just that I can't. So to me, it's Tomrio's Baron steal and then Nugu just nuking people. I'd probably give it to Nugu because his damage was kind of nuts at the beginning of the game. Really controlled Yato's Ahri as well. I know the laning phase wasn't perfect, but I do not remember Ahri getting out on the map and having any sort of influence, and a lot of that is because of Nugu's control. So I'd probably give it to Nugu personally. And again, that's we don't have we have a democratic order of MVP voting here, so anybody who watches can kind of vote, and then we have the ability to like give away points, and that's how we kind of determine these things. Just my votes will be going to Nugu for that one because I really do think that was great.
And I'm just still blown away. We, of course, are going to follow up this series with another super important one, especially for the side of Team Wales. Yes, GAM is already secured in players, and now with even more space between them and the next team, because, of course, Cerberus was on their tail. They were chasing them. Now they're 2 series ahead still and could go 3 series ahead. But, of course, GAM is also chasing that elusive 14-0. They've done it once, just 1 year ago, 14-0 in spring. But they could do it again, and that would be a huge achievement in its own. So definitely interested to see if GAM can keep it up. They looked a little bit more shaky this week, maybe, than you would expect. So upcoming series could also go quite the distance. I mean, this one actually didn't go the distance, surprisingly.
No. Yeah, we're gonna be in a very close kind of position to be able to work this. As GAM Esports is gonna be taking on Team Wales. Team Wales still trying to make that push for playoffs, still trying to confirm over top of SBTC. It's still not even impossible for Flash or Secret to make runs to playoffs either, which is what's wild. So every single game counts here for a lot of these middle of the pack teams. So after a short break, probably 20, 25 minutes, something like that, it's weird because the VCS is always a little bit random. Keep your eye on the timer. We'll be back in somewhere around a half an hour, and you'll get to see game one of GAM versus Wales in our final series of week number 5.